The sound of the card machine, that familiar whir and beep. It was like the soundtrack to all our family dinners. And there we were again. The high bill lay on the table, the waiter hovered, and my son Michael and his wife Sarah, my daughter-in-law, had their eyes fixed on me. Just like always, I gave them my usual tired smile and reached for my purse, because that's what I always did. That's when Michael let out a loud laugh, a bit too loud for the restaurant, and said to Sarah, "Leave it to Mom. She'll pay. You know, don't you? Mum's rich." Sarah joined in, her laughter echoing his, and they both just sat there, chuckling, looking at me. Their laughter bounced off the walls of the restaurant, but to me, it sounded like crystal shattering, sharp and cold, right inside my chest. The food, which had tasted fine moments before, suddenly felt bitter in my mouth. It wasn't about the money, you see. It never was. It was about the way my love, my care, everything I had poured into them had been turned into a cheap joke. It was an obligation they didn't even bother to acknowledge anymore, just something I was expected to do. A public performance, almost. I paid the bill, just as I always did, but for the very first time, I felt the weight of every single penny, not in my wallet, but deep in my soul. That laugh, that shared moment of mockery, it was the final straw. It was the period at the end of a very long, painful sentence that I hadn't yet had the courage to write. I managed another smile for the waiter, a thin, tired smile that didn't even try to reach my eyes. As I slowly typed my PIN into the machine, a very clear, silent decision formed inside me. They thought I was rich. Oh, they had no idea. Not really. But they would find out. Soon enough. Not in the way they imagined. Not with stacks of cash or brand gestures, but in a way they would never, ever forget. And as I put away my card, I knew that was the last bill I would ever pay for them. My name is Elizabeth. I'm 72 years old now, a retired teacher. I've always lived a simple life, you know? Nothing fancy, but always full of affection, I thought. After my wonderful husband Arthur passed away, my whole world, my whole heart, really, just poured into my children and my grandchildren. My apartment, it's not big, but it always smelled of fresh cake, didn't it? And the walls, they were covered, absolutely covered, with photos of all their smiles. Faces that, looking back now, seem so distant, almost like they belonged to strangers. I truly believed, with every fiber of my being, that a mother's greatest treasure was just seeing her family united, truly happy, all together. Arthur, my husband, he was a good man, so thoughtful. He wasn't some rich businessman, not at all, but he was incredibly organized, always thinking ahead, and he worked so hard all his life. Before he left me, he made absolutely sure I would be okay, that I would never, ever have to depend on anyone. He used to call them his papers. Just a few bits of paper, he'd say. And tucked away among them was the deed to a small commercial property right there in the city center. That little building, it brought in a steady rental income every single month. I never really made a fuss about it, never boasted. To me, it was just a security blanket. You know? A little extra, a resource, just there to help the family for when they really needed it. And with that small extra income, I could provide so many comforts. The weekly dinners at our favorite Italian place, that's where we always went. The expensive birthday presents, the ones they really wanted. The help with their monthly bills when they called and said they were short. I did it all with such pleasure, honestly. It felt like I was carrying on Arthur's legacy, his way of caring for us all. It was my way, my very personal way, of saying I love you to them. Little did I know all that time that my way of loving them, my endless giving, was being interpreted by them as something entirely different. It was being seen as an unlimited ATM. But slowly, very slowly, that beautiful kindness I thought we shared, it just started to fade away. It wasn't a sudden thing, nothing dramatic at first. It was just a little whisper, then a sigh, then a silence. The "Mum, we love yous," those warm words that used to melt my heart, they started to get replaced. They turned into "Mum, we need." It was always a need, a bill, a con repair, something for the house. The calls changed their tune. Sunday lunches, the ones I loved so much, cooking all their favorite dishes right here in my little apartment, those became rare. Suddenly it was always easier to go out. And of course, when we went out, it was me who paid. Always. It just became the norm. Weeknight calls? Oh, those only happened when a bill was due. Or when Michael, my son, needed help with his car insurance. Or when Sarah, my daughter-in-law, wanted to upgrade something in her kitchen. I started to notice that. It was a pattern. A very clear, very cold pattern. I remember my 70th birthday, my big birthday. It passed. No party, no visit, not even a phone call, nothing. It felt like a little piece of me withered that day. I tried to justify it, of course. Always the excuses. They're busy, Elizabeth, I'd tell myself. Life is hectic. They have their own stresses. I tried so hard to believe that, to make sense of it. But deep down, their coldness, that growing distance, it was like a small cut, a tiny wound that never, ever healed. It just stayed there, aching. I started to see the subtle disdain in everything, the small details that cut the deepest. During those dinners out, the ones I paid for, they'd barely look at me. Their eyes would be on their phones, always scrolling, always texting. It was like I was just furniture, a warm body at the table. And the line, "Oh, Mom, we forgot our wallets," that became a predictable script, a little play they put on. Every time the bill arrived, they didn't even bother to disguise it anymore. It was just an expectation. They knew I would pull out my card. The pain, it settled in quietly. It wasn't a shout, it was a whisper. A heavy feeling in my chest that just stayed there. I started to feel like an old piece of furniture in their house. Useful, yes, always there, always present, but completely invisible. The head of the table was always mine, literally. The bill was always mine. But the joy, the laughter, the real conversations, the affection, that was only theirs. They shared it amongst themselves every single time. Each dinner, each present, each bill. I kept paying, hoping that, along with the food, along with the expensive wine, I could buy just a little piece of the love I felt slipping away. A desperate hope that the money would somehow bring back the warmth, the connection, the family I thought I had. It was a quiet prayer every time I handed over my card. A prayer that never seemed to be answered. That night, I remember it so clearly. It was a Tuesday, I think, or maybe a Wednesday. The days all blurred together back then, like watercolor paints running into each other. But that specific night, it stands out in stark relief, sharper than anything before or since. It was at our usual place, the family bistro, the one where we'd had so many dinners, so many supposed celebrations. This time, it was for a friend of Michael and Sarah's, someone I barely knew. Another birthday, another reason to gather, another reason for me to be there. Expected to pick up the tab. They were already there when I arrived, chatting loudly, their faces bright, animated. Sarah looked beautiful, all dressed up. Michael, my son, he was laughing, his arm around his friend. They looked like they were having the time of their lives. I sat down at the end of the table, just watching them. They ordered the most expensive things on the menu, without even glancing at the prices. The imported wine, the elaborate desserts. I just sat there, quiet, with a heavy heart. My plate was full of food, but my spirit, it was just starving. Starving for a kind word, a real look, a moment where I felt like more than just a presence providing. The table was full. So many people, so much noise, but I felt so utterly alone. Then the moment came, like it always did. The waiter, a young man, brought the bill to the table. He laid it down, folded neatly, right in the center. Michael, he reached for it, as if to inspect it, a theatrical gesture he often made. He unfolded it, glanced at the numbers, and then he let out a laugh. A big, booming laugh that cut right through the chatter of the restaurant. He turned to Sarah, my daughter-in-law, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, loud enough for the waiter to hear, loud enough for me to hear every single syllable. "Relax, darling. Mom's got it. She's rich," Sarah giggled. A high, tinkling sound. She didn't even look at me, just smiled at Michael, complicit in the joke. It was like a performance, a routine they'd perfected. And I was the punchline. The humiliation, it was public. It wasn't a secret whisper. It was out there for anyone who cared to listen. The waiter, he looked at me. His eyes held a mix of pity and embarrassment. He quickly averted his gaze, almost like he didn't want to intrude on this private, ugly moment. But it wasn't private. It was on display, right there, at our usual restaurant. At that exact moment, I wasn't Elizabeth, the mother who loved them, who tried to care for them. I wasn't the woman who had held them close when they were sick, who had worked to put food on their table, who had buried their father with a broken heart. No, in that moment, to them, to the waiter, to anyone listening, I was just the rich one, the provider, the walking ATM. I felt my face burn. A deep, hot flush spread across my cheeks. It wasn't just embarrassment. It was shame. Shame for them, for their blatant disregard. Shame for myself, for letting it come to this. I took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to steady myself. My hand, it trembled slightly as I reached into my purse. I pulled out my card, the familiar plastic, worn from so many transactions. I didn't say a word. I just took the bill, signed the slip, and handed it back to the waiter. He took it quickly, nodding, still not meeting my eyes. The drive home, in Michael's car, was silent, deafeningly silent. At least, it was to me. To them, it wasn't silent at all. They were absorbed in their phones, their thumbs flying across the screens. They were probably posting photos of the lavish meal, the imported wine, the expensive desserts, the meal that the rich mom had just paid for. They didn't even notice my quietness. They didn't notice the distance that had suddenly become a chasm between us. The break was complete. The bond, the one I had believed to be unbreakable, forged through years of love and sacrifice, it had snapped. It had broken into a million tiny, irreparable pieces. They didn't know it, but their laughter, that mocking sound, had given me the strength I needed to do what I should have done years ago. That night, I didn't cry. Not a single tear. It was strange, because I usually cried easily. For years, tears had been my constant companions, a quiet release for the ache in my heart. But that night, the pain was so deep, so absolute. It didn't feel like tears anymore. It felt solid. It had transformed. It had become something else entirely. A chilling clarity. That's the only way I can describe it. Like the sudden sharp focus of a camera lens after years of blur. I arrived home. My small apartment, usually a cozy refuge, felt different. It felt like a space where I could finally breathe. I went straight to my armchair, the one by the window, and sat down. For the first time, I didn't look at the photos on the wall with that familiar ache of longing, that desperate wish for what used to be. No, I looked at them with distance, like they were pictures of people I once knew, a story that belonged to someone else. They were just images now, not reflections of my current reality. In that quiet, still moment, a truth settled over me, heavy and undeniable. I finally understood. I needed to stop. Stop watering plants that had already died inside. The love I kept pouring out, the effort I kept making, it was going into a void. It wasn't nourishing anything anymore. It was just draining me. And now, after that laughter, after being called rich as a sneer, I was utterly, completely drained. I pushed myself up from the armchair. My legs felt a little shaky, but my resolve was steady. I walked over to Arthur's old wooden desk. It was a sturdy, dark wood desk, filled with drawers, each one holding a piece of our life together. He had loved that desk. It was where he did his paperwork, where he planned our future. I opened the top right drawer, the one he always said held the important documents. Inside, tucked neatly away, was a manila folder. I pulled it out. My fingers traced the smooth, slightly worn edge. I opened it, and there it was, the commercial property deed. The paper, so unassuming, yet so significant. I looked at the name printed clearly on it. Elizabeth Adams. My name. It wasn't just Arthur's legacy anymore. It was mine. And as I looked at that paper, a memory surfaced, as clear as if he were sitting right there next to me. Arthur's voice, calm and steady. "Elizabeth," he would say, his hand gently on mine, "use this for your peace, not for others' convenience." He had told me that so many times. I had always taken it to mean, use it for yourself. If things get tough, use it so you don't have to worry. But now, the meaning shifted. It wasn't just about financial peace. It was about emotional peace. It was about my dignity. Revenge. That's what some people might have called what I was about to do. But it wasn't revenge. Revenge, I thought, is a dish best served hot, full of anger. And I wasn't angry anymore. Just deeply, profoundly weary. Tired of the charade. Tired of being invisible. Tired of being an ATM. My plan was different. It wasn't about making them suffer, not really. It was about reclaiming something. It was about my dignity. I carefully folded the deed, and instead of putting it back in the drawer, I put it into my purse. Not my big everyday purse, but my small evening one. A one I'd carried to the family bistro just hours before. The purse that had held the credit card that paid their bill. Now it held something else entirely. Something that represented a turning point. A strange calm settled over me. It surprised me, honestly. After all the turmoil, it wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be angry. It would be quiet, deliberate, and definitive. They called me rich as an insult, a mocking joke at my expense. But I was going to show them the true meaning of my wealth, not in money, not in possessions, but in my freedom. I spent the following weeks in silence. It wasn't an angry silence, more like a careful, deliberate one. Like I was holding my breath, preparing for something. I didn't reach out to them. I didn't call. And they, predictably, didn't call me either. Not for casual chats, not to see how I was, not to ask if I wanted company. Their calls, when they did come, were exactly what I had expected, exactly what they had always been. Transactional. Michael was the first. His voice, usually so confident, had a faint edge of bewilderment. "Mum," he'd said, about the car insurance. "You know it's due next week. Can you send the usual amount?" I could almost hear the expectation in his voice. The assumption that I would just say yes, that the money would magically appear. I took a slow breath. This was it, the first test. "I'm sorry, son," I replied, my voice calm, steadier than I ever thought it could be. "But this month it won't be possible." There was a long, shocked silence on the other end of the line. So long, I thought the call had dropped. Then, his voice, sharper, tinged with irritation. "What do you mean, Mum? You always help. Did something happen?" Something did, I thought. I finally woke up. But I didn't say that out loud. I simply repeated, "I'm sorry, Michael. I can't this month." And then I hung up. It felt like severing a wire, clean and swift. His refusal, "You're letting them down. They tried to manipulate me, pulling every emotional string they knew. Guilt, duty, familial obligation. The pressure was immense. Each call felt like a tiny drill, boring into the raw wound of my heart. But strangely, with every accusation, every attempt to make me feel small and unloving, my resolve only strengthened. It was like I was shedding layers. They didn't miss my company, or my affection, or my presence. They just missed my money. The realization was painful, yes, incredibly so, but it was also liberating. It stripped away all the illusions, all the hopeful fantasies I'd clung to for so long. I felt completely alone, more than I had in years. The family I had built with so much love, with every ounce of my being, now proved complicit in their ingratitude. But this aloneness wasn't empty. It was a space where I could finally breathe. They thought they were isolating me, cutting me off, but in reality, they were pushing me towards the exit door I needed to find myself again. Then, a few days later, Michael called me one last time. His tone was different, falsely conciliatory, like he was trying to be the good son again, trying to smooth things over. "Mum," he said, his voice softer, almost pleading, "let's sort this out. Let's have dinner at the family bistro, like the old times, to talk. Just us, the old times." The words hung in the air, hollow and ironic, but I accepted. My voice was calm when I said yes. I knew what I was going to do. This wasn't about dinner, not anymore. This was about finally closing a chapter. I arrived at the restaurant, the very same place where my humiliation had been so public, so cutting. The familiar red awning, the cozy interior, the scent of garlic and oregano. It had been the backdrop for so many of my unspoken heartbreaks. They were already at the table, Michael and Sarah, sitting opposite each other. Their smiles when they saw me were rehearsed, too bright, too quick. Like actors on a stage, I didn't bring my usual big purse, the one I always carried, heavy with my wallet and keys and all the small things a mother keeps. No, this time I just carried a small brown envelope. I walked straight to the table, not sitting down right away. Before they could even open their menus, before they could order drinks or begin their carefully prepared conciliatory speeches, I placed the envelope gently on the pristine white tablecloth, right in the center of the table. Between them. "I didn't come for dinner," I said, my voice firm, clear. No tremor, no hesitation. It surprised even me how steady it was. "I came to settle a matter." They looked at me, confused. Their rehearsed smiles faltered, then vanished. Michael's eyebrows furrowed. Sarah blinked, a flicker of irritation in her eyes. "What are you talking about, Mum?" Michael asked, a slight edge returning to his voice. I didn't answer him directly. I just reached for the envelope. My fingers, surprisingly steady, opened the flap. I slid the thick, cream-colored property deed out and pushed it slowly across the table towards them. The paper glided smoothly, a silent statement. "Do you remember calling me rich here?" I began, my gaze sweeping from Michael to Sarah, holding their eyes. "At this very table, just a few weeks ago?" Well then, I paused, letting the silence fill the space. This is the deed to the building we're in." Their eyes dropped to the paper. Their faces, I watched them closely. The color drained from Michael's face, leaving him pale, almost ashen. Sarah's jaw dropped, literally, her mouth hanging slightly open. A waiter walked by, oblivious, carrying a tray of drinks. But in that moment, our table was a world unto itself, suspended in disbelief. "The family bistro," I continued, my voice gaining strength, "has been my tenant for 15 years. Long before you were married, Sarah. Long before Michael bought his first car. The rent from this place paid for all your dinners, all your expensive presents, all your car repairs, all your monthly bills, everything you ever called me for." My voice didn't rise. It simply became a statement of fact, undeniable and heavy. I wasn't rich, as you so casually joked. I was investing in my family, investing everything I had, financially and emotionally, into what I thought was our shared future. I took a breath, but I realized that the investment didn't yield a return. It yielded nothing. I finally stood up, slowly, deliberately. I didn't reach for the papers on the table. They were theirs now, or at least, the knowledge contained within them was. The weight had shifted. "From today," I said, my voice echoing slightly in the sudden stillness of my own mind, "the well has run dry. The bill for this meal and for everything going forward, it's yours." I turned and walked out. I didn't look back. I didn't pay. And I didn't say goodbye. The restaurant noise faded behind me, replaced by the quiet hum of my own heartbeat, finally, truly free. That day, I didn't buy their silence with money, but with the truth. And the truth, finally, set me free. The air outside the restaurant that night, after I walked out, felt different, lighter, like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders, a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying until it was gone. I breathed it in, deeply, and for the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel the familiar ache in my chest, just a quiet, astonishing sense of peace. My life, it truly changed overnight. The very next morning, I made calls. I didn't hesitate. The first thing I did was hire a property management company, a good one, highly recommended. They would handle the building, the tenants, the rent, everything. No more managing it myself. No more the slight, constant reminder of where that money was coming from or where it was going. It was like cutting the last practical tie, the final thread that bound me to that past, to that old obligation. It felt wonderfully liberating. With the rental money, which was now solely mine to decide what to do with, I didn't make grand extravagances. No fancy cars, no luxury cruises, nothing like that. That wasn't me. I simply gave myself the peace I so deserved. The peace Arthur had told me to find, it wasn't about spending. It was about living. I enrolled in a gardening course. It had been an old passion, something I always loved but never really had the time to cultivate. Always busy, always rushing, always putting others first. Now I had all the time in the world. The mornings which used to be filled with the anxiety of waiting for a call that never came, or the dread of one that did, are now filled with the wonderful smell of wet earth and the sweet chirping of birds on my sunny balcony, where I've started growing herbs and flowers. It's a simple pleasure, but it fills my heart. I made new friends in the course, too. Lovely ladies, mostly my age. We shared stories over coffee, talked about our gardens, our lives. Some of them had their own quiet stories of triumph, of finding joy after loss or change. We laughed, we learned, we shared tips about soil and sunlight. It was real connection, easy and honest, without any expectations. I even traveled, something I'd put off for years. Just a short trip to a charming resort town by the sea, an old dream Arthur and I had shared. I walked on the beach, felt the sand between my toes, and watched the waves roll in. I felt vibrant and alive, truly alive, in a way I hadn't felt since before Arthur left me. Maybe even before that, if I'm really honest. I realized I'd been living for other people for so long, I'd forgotten what it felt like to live for myself. My small apartment, the one that once felt filled with their distant smiles, transformed into a sanctuary. I redecorated everything, bit by bit. I took down the old photos, the ones that just reminded me of what was lost. Instead, I put up paintings I had done myself, clumsy at first, but filled with joy, and vases overflowing with the beautiful flowers I learned to grow on my balcony. Every corner now reflected me, not a desperate attempt to hold on to someone else's memory. I no longer felt alone. I discovered that loneliness isn't about being by yourself. It's about being with people who, no matter how close they are physically, still manage to make you feel utterly, completely alone. And now, in my quiet, sunlit apartment, with the smell of my herbs and the sound of birds, I was truly home. I didn't need a new house to start over. I just needed to feel at home within myself. I'm here now, on my balcony, you see? The sun is worn on my face. This little orchid here, it's just unfurling a new bud. It's a slow, beautiful process, watching something grow, something bloom. And I think about how my own life has changed, how it's blooming again in its own way, after what felt like a very long winter. You know, for a very, very long time, I truly believed my worth was tied to what I could do for others, how much I could give, how much I could provide. It felt like that was my purpose, especially after Arthur passed, to be the one who smoothed things over, who made life easier for Michael and Sarah, to be the rock, the provider, the endless well. I thought that was love. I thought that's how you kept a family together, by always being there, always giving. Today I know that's not how it is, not truly. It's a strange thing, isn't it? To realize that the very people you poured your heart into, they might not see you at all. They might only see a resource, a way to get what they want. It's a painful lesson, one that cuts deep, right to your very core. But it's also a lesson that, once learned, can set you free. It changed everything for me. I often ask myself, now, looking back, what about you? Have you ever felt that? Have you ever felt invisible, right in front of the very people you loved most in this world? As if your only value, your only reason for being there, was what you could offer. Your time, your money, your effort, your patience, as if you were just a function, a means to an end, not a person with feelings and needs of your own. Maybe you felt that quiet ache, that slow fading into the background, while others live their vibrant lives, sometimes at your expense. It's a common feeling, I think, especially as we grow older. It's easy to get lost in that, isn't it? To keep giving, to keep hoping, to keep stretching yourself thin, just for a glimmer of recognition, a moment of real connection. You tell yourself, oh, they're busy, or they don't mean it. You make excuses for them, because the alternative, the truth, is too hard to face. You convince yourself that one more sacrifice will finally buy you the love, the respect, the appreciation you crave. I know I did. For years, I kept paying, not just bills, but pieces of myself. But let me tell you something from my own heart to yours. Don't wait for a mocking laugh to realize your worth. Don't wait for someone to point and say, oh, she's rich, in a way that makes you feel cheap, used, and utterly disregarded. Don't wait for that moment of public humiliation, or even the quiet, everyday kind, to finally wake up. Life is too short to be taken for granted. Sometimes the bravest act of love we can have, the most important one, is for ourselves. It's knowing when to stand up from the table, even if you're leaving food on your plate, and just walk away. It's not about being angry or spiteful or getting revenge. It's about choosing your peace. It's about drawing a line in the sand and saying, no more. This isn't serving me, and it isn't honoring me. It's not selfishness, you see. It's self-preservation. It's honoring the person you are, the life you've lived, and the peace you deserve in your twilight years. Especially as we get older, there's this quiet expectation, isn't there? That we'll always be there, always available, always the support system. That our needs somehow become less important, while everyone else's grow. We're supposed to be content with just being useful, but our dignity, our feelings, our peace of mind, they don't diminish with age. If anything, they become even more precious. Because time, as I've learned, is finite. And how you spend your time, how you allow others to treat you in that time, matters more than anything. Remember this. Truly remember it. Your worth isn't in what you give. It's not in the dinners you pay for, or the bills you cover, or the advice you offer, or the sacrifices you make. Your worth is in who you are, the unique person you've become, the strength you carry, the kindness that's still inside you, even after everything. And that, who you are, your true essence, no one, absolutely no one, can take from you. It's yours, and it's invaluable. It's a journey, finding that out. A long, often painful one, yes, but it's a journey worth taking. Because once you find it, once you truly feel at home within yourself, everything changes. The sun feels warmer, the flowers smell sweeter, and the peace, oh, the peace is simply everything. Never allow anyone to put a price on your dignity. That day, standing there, telling them the truth of it all, that was the day I finally understood what true wealth really was. Not the numbers in a bank account, not a deed to a building, but the quiet, unshakable feeling of knowing your own worth, of refusing to let anyone chip away at your soul for their own convenience. Never allow anyone to put a price on your dignity. That's what I learned, etched deep into my heart. And you know, the most beautiful thing about that realization, it brought with it such a profound peace, a quiet, steady calm that hums beneath everything now. It's like the constant, low thrum of a beautiful melody, always there, always comforting. I'm still here, on my sunny balcony, tending to my orchid. It's opening another bud, slowly, patiently. It reminds me of how life, too, unfurls its beauty in its own time, if you just give it the space and the light it needs. My days now are filled with the simple joys I'd forgotten how to appreciate. The way the morning sun spills across my kitchen floor, the taste of my own freshly brewed tea, the satisfying feel of earth beneath my fingers when I'm repotting a plant, the easy laughter with my new friends at the gardening class, women who see me, truly see me, not for what I can give, but for who I am. They share their own stories, their own quiet struggles and triumphs, and there's a genuine connection there, a warmth that doesn't demand anything in return. It just is. Sometimes I still think back to those painful dinners, to Michael's laugh, to Sarah's indifferent eyes, and for a fleeting moment, a ghost of the old ache passes through me. But it doesn't linger. It's like a distant echo, not a present pain, because the truth, my truth, set me free. And that freedom, that serenity, it's a treasure beyond measure. It's a lightness of being that allows me to simply exist, without the burden of expectations, without the constant need to prove my love or my worth. I discovered that the greatest love story you can ever truly live is the one with yourself. It's about being kind to your own heart, honoring your own peace, and understanding that you are enough just as you are. It's not selfish to choose yourself, to protect your boundaries, to walk away from what diminishes you. It's an act of deep, profound love, the kind that allows you to finally blossom into the person you were always meant to be. My life isn't grand, not in the way some people define it. It's quiet, it's peaceful, and it's mine. Every single moment of it. I found my way back to myself, to the Elizabeth who loves quiet evenings, who finds joy in a blooming flower, who delights in genuine conversation. The woman Arthur loved, the woman who had gotten a little lost in all the giving. She's here now, stronger, wiser, and so very, very at peace. And if you want to keep receiving real stories like this, pay attention. YouTube might be unsubscribing you without warning. Confirm you're still subscribed to the channel and hit the bell icon. May you also find your own quiet peace and cherish the invaluable worth that resides within you.